Hello, good morning. Welcome to the Sunday Supplement. Coming up on today's show, oh no, Jose, he's on the warpath. This time it's Craig Pawson. He's in the firing line after failing to give Manchester United a penalty and their 0-0 draw with Southampton yesterday. Liverpool, they've paid a world record £75 million for a defender, but is Virgil Van Dijk the man to tighten up their leaky defence? And Mark Hughes, he's under fire after picking an understrength side for their 5-0 defeat, for Stoke's 5-0 defeat against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge yesterday. Sunday Supplement, we're at full strength this morning. Martin Samuel, he's the chief sports writer with The Mail. Darren Lewis is a football reporter with the Daily Mirror. Jason Burt is the chief football correspondent at The Telegraph. Morning, fellas. Good to see you as ever. Thanks for coming on the last show of 2017. Don't forget, you can tweet the show at Sunday Sup. The best will appear on your screen over the next 90 minutes. OK, let's have a little look at some of the papers this morning, some of the headlines. The Sunday Times, knockout blow. It's not good for Lukaku. Will miss Manchester United's next couple of games, we think, with concussion. Mourinho, he's not happy with the way that his team performed yesterday. He thought they should have had a penalty yesterday. He won't want to hear from this man, I don't suppose. I'll help you. This is Pep Guardiola. This is his message to the FA ahead of the World Cup. Pep happy to pass on some of his knowledge and some of his wisdom. Same back page on the Sunday People this morning. Pep's Raw. Pep's going to pass on some of his knowledge to the FA ahead of the World Cup. The Sunday Mirror. If Manchester United need a striker, they can turn to this man, Ronaldo, on his way out of Real Madrid. We've seen this story before. We'll see it again, no doubt. Simon Mullock saying that Ronaldo's fallen out with Florentino Perez at Real Madrid. He wants out. Will Manchester United offer him a home? Alexis Sanchez, not my problem, on his way to Manchester City. We think we'll come on to him in part 4 of today's programme. The Sun's goals pull out the happy blue year. Danny Drinkwater scoring yesterday. The first Englishman to score in the Premier League for Chelsea since last May, would you believe? Scored yesterday in their 5-0 win, but Mark Hughes under pressure and under fire after making so many changes to his Stoke City side yesterday. The Sunday Mirror, Narsingh, when you're winning. A goal from him yesterday. Massive win yesterday for the Swans at Vicarage Road against Watford. And a couple of the columnists. Let's have a look. Ollie Holt getting tucked into Jose Mourinho. Everyone's getting tucked into him. All the guests in a moment. Woodward about to find out what it's like to be the enemy of Jose Mourinho. And some pretty serious stuff this week from Daniel Taylor with Ryan Brewster, the Liverpool striker, which we're going to come on to in part 3 of today's programme. OK, first up then, Manchester United and Mourinho. Drew yesterday, can't get a win. Mourinho making complaints, referees, money, transfers, the lot. What's gone wrong at Manchester United for Jose Mourinho?
Well, he's going to get no sympathy. That's the first.
I didn't think he would. No.
That's the first. That's the first given, because you're never going to get any sympathy as manager of Manchester United because you're perceived to have every advantage in the world. I think, you know, he's on really rocky ground with the money thing, for instance, because I think once you've spent above £300 million, I mean, you can't complain about money. You can't complain about, oh, they've had 40 million quid more than we have, or this one's got, you know, if you've managed to throw 300 million quid at a project, you should be able to produce a decent product out of that. And for a lot of the season, they have done. I still think they lost momentum. You know, I know we've had this conversation on here before. I still think they lost momentum at a vital time at Anfield because they really had great forward momentum at that time. And I do think the start of the season gave perhaps a slightly false impression of where they were because it was just uncannily generous to them. I mean, I don't think you couldn't have plotted a set of fixtures where you played virtually everybody in what was the bottom half of the table by the time that had finished. And I think the highest team they played in the first 2 months was 7th. Or something like that. And so that gave them this great forward momentum, which they have managed to lose. And now there does seem to be a lot of moment, and you're never gonna. I can't see. He's an intelligent man, Jose. I can't see how he thinks he ever wins that argument by keep sitting in front of people and complaining. Because you're the manager of Manchester United. It's one of the richest clubs in the world. You know, Man City have got a bit more money to spend than we have. So what? You know, Manchester City haven't got a £75 million striker. They've never spent as much as on a midfield player as Manchester United have on Paul Pogba. If we're talking about the inflation of fullbacks, who bought Luke Shaw? Well, I know it wasn't Jose, but it was Manchester United, so that starts the inflation of fullbacks. And not only that, we've got a perception of fullbacks now where, oh, he's only a fullback, what's he 50 million quid for? Or what's he 45 million quid for? You look at the best teams in the world, the fullbacks are about the most important players in the team half the time, in terms of... You look at what the fullbacks have done in allowing Manchester City to play the way that Guardiola wants them to play this season. It's all about getting the right fullbacks, which allows Sterling and those guys to come inside, and the whole system is about the fullbacks. So, basically, I don't see how he wins that one. You know, you're not going to... Do you know what I mean? You're not going to win any points in a conversation. You don't get 3 points for a very good press conference.
Yeah. That's the end of part one.
Right,
that's okay.
I've come through the pouring rain with this, mate. You know, stood outside trying to get into this place again.
I know. And you've been away for how many weeks?
I've been away for... Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've got a lot to get off my chest.
Yeah, no, you've got a lot to get off your chest. Good job, you've got 90 minutes for you as well, hasn't
Exactly.
it? OK, right, have a blow. And Dazza.
Well, I agree with Martin, actually. I think as far as Mourinho is concerned, obviously you've got to predicate any conversation about Mourinho by recognising what he's given to the game. And he's been fantastic how many different countries, Champions Leagues and titles and whatever else. But I think as far as this whole bizarre debate is concerned, he's not going to get any sympathy. I think if you look at Guardiola, it isn't... Quite clearly, they've spent a fortune at City, but you also have to look at the players who's improved, the players that many people thought would be on their way under Guardiola. Delph is excelling at left-back, Fernandinho in central midfield. Some people said he would be too aggressive for Guardiola's football. He's a central part of what he's trying to do. John Stones, so many people used to just dismiss him. Now he is a key player in the Manchester City side. Mangala,
injured at the moment, of course.
Injured, of course, at the moment. But when
yeah.
he's fit, he is a key player in that team. Otamendi, Mangala, he inherited Kevin De Bruyne. I mean, I think you look at some of the players that Guardiola's got. What he has is a well-drilled, creative system that the players all buy into. I think as far as Mourinho is concerned, yes, he's winning games and he's scoring goals or whatever else, but there just looks to be a lethargy about the way that they play. It's highlighted by Paul Scholes and Martin Keown in their broadcast last night, and I think everyone who looks at this whole debate about the money will not have sympathy for Mourinho precisely because of the reasons that Martin's described. And when you have that kind of backing, and yes, there are people who talk about Woodward and whatever else, but he has had backing. United have spent £600 million since Sir Alex Ferguson retired. They have invested in that team. You can talk all you want about the players who some people may deem no longer good enough to play for their club, but that's a good squad of players, and they should be able to get through these difficult moments.
Jason, last week I thought it was Chelsea 2015. I thought it was the start of the complaints. This is going back to the Leicester game. You covered Mourinho when he left in 2007, first time around, after the Rosenborg game.
Yeah.
Again, of course, after the Leicester game in December 2015.
Yeah.
Do you see the same haunting similarities with Mourinho's behaviour?
I've been thinking about that quite a lot, and I'm starting to think possibly yes. I mean, I think there are so many complaints now. There are so wide a complaint. I mean, when you're hearing people close to him complaining about the United board, about Ed Woodward, about the structure of the club, about the ownership of the club, about the money being made available, about the players, about the facilities. It starts to sound like it's everything, basically. And when it starts to become everything with him, then you're heading towards one direction. It may well be, I may well be wrong, but it may well be he's trying to provoke something. Now, was he trying to provoke Manchester United to do something, or is he trying to provoke Manchester United to actually try and invite him to leave? You know, it's the way things are going at the moment. He doesn't seem happy to me at all. He's obviously blaming everything. The money argument, obviously, the guys have talked about quite a lot, is absolute nonsense. It's an absolute rubbish argument. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever what he's talking about. But he's like a barrister. I mean, basically, he'll construct an argument for his case. You know, it doesn't necessarily mean it's true, but he'll construct an argument, and you've got to. And some people will go along.
Is it compelling? Yeah.
Yeah, he's a compelling arguer, but when you go back through it, It just doesn't hold water. None of it holds water. I mean, for example, the Manchester derby, I think 8 of the 11 that started for Manchester City were inherited by Pep Guardiola. This idea he's bought all these players. Martin's absolutely nailed it with the thing about the fullbacks. And that shows to me that Mourinho doesn't understand the modern game. Because, you know, Pep Guardiola spent all this money on fullbacks, one of which has been injured all season, by the way.
Yeah.
But he spent all this money on fullbacks because he needs them to play the way he wants to play.
Absolutely.
It's not about he's paying the money you pay for a striker for a fullback, but yes, because the fullback's a very important player.
The fullback's almost as important as the striker.
Exactly, the way you want to play. Kyle Walker makes the best recovery runs in the Premier League. He's a very good attacking fullback. That's why they bought him. You know, they paid a premium, but you're paying a premium for everyone nowadays. Yeah. To me, Mourinho's playing football from 10 years ago, and this is the football that dominated 10 years ago that he and Rafa Benitez played. And he's not moved on. And I think what puzzles me about Mourinho is that Manchester United should provide the perfect conditions for him. There's no internal politics. There is no backbiting. No. There's nobody trying to undermine him whatsoever at the club. Nobody at all. And it's just not working. Obviously, partly because he's got Pep Guardiola there. But even then, it's not great football. It's not football that you want to be a team like Manchester United wants to be playing. I don't think. You know, so I look at it now and I think, where is he heading? Where is this all going? And as you're alluding to, I think there'll be a pinch point fairly soon where actually, you know, it's got to be decided whether he wants to carry on, really. I think, you know, there are people around him saying, oh, he's not getting this, he's not getting that, he wants a new contract. We've heard a lot of this all before. It's a very, very similar narrative in many ways to what's happened before. He needs to stop, basically. If he wants to stay as Manchester United manager, he just needs to stop this. Because it's going in one direction at the moment and it's going against him.
You think it's coming to that already for him?
I think it's going in that direction. You know, I don't know how far down that road we are, but it's going in that direction because I can't see how... And there's no joy or happiness or anything around it. And it just seems to me that he can't be enjoying any of this. And I'm sure somebody at some stage is going to have to say to him, look, we can't carry on like this because... You know, you're complaining all the time, it's becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy, the results are deteriorating. And also with Mourinho, when you take away the results, when you take away the wins, you haven't always got a lot left. I remember at Chelsea first time round, that's what they said to me. You know, you take away the winning, and what are you left with? A lot of aggravation.
OK. Stories at the weekend, on Saturday, Pep was asked about the city centre apartment that he'd bought. Which he bought some time ago, but now he was happy to talk about it. He said, OK, look, I've always been committed to this club. Does it matter that Guardiola has made that commitment to Manchester? He said, I want to live with the people of Manchester that he was talking about. Compare that with Mourinho, who's still living in the Lowry Hotel, doesn't appear to have any plans to move into a permanent residence. In fact, his permanent residence is a suite at the Lowry Hotel. Does it make any difference? Is there a message there?
I'm not sure it does. I mean, I think it quite clearly it does play into this whole narrative that he doesn't stay at very many clubs very long. And as such, it's the reason why he doesn't indulge players who are a work in progress, because loads of questions being asked about some of the players who are now excelling, who hadn't excelled under him, or players that he hadn't had time for, so they decided they wanted to move on elsewhere so they could get regular first-team football. There's this idea that he's a cyclical manager, 2-3 years at one club, moves on to another one. I think when things aren't going well, all those things become considerations. I don't think that matters as much for me than it would do if the team were playing well and if they were making the most of the many assets that they do have. But right now, for me, I think it is almost a perfect storm. Jamie Carragher wrote a wonderful piece earlier, I think 2 days ago, about the fact that it is sounding like a broken record when you look at what he's spent, when you look at the repertoire of excuses he's gone through. He is right, Mourinho, to suggest that he should have had a penalty yesterday. But when you look at what he's spent and you look at the options available to him, he's got a team that should be able to see off the 15th best team in the league that hadn't won for 7 games.
And that Tottenham were
Tottenham smashed
absolutely
up the other day. And I think people are seeing now the whole shtick. You know, the blaming the referees, the blaming the players, the blaming the rival managers, the trying to get under the skin of rival managers. That whole routine now is quite well worn, if you like, and I think they are the things that are of a greater significance.
Martin, at what point does Edward Wood intervene here with Mourinho and say, hold on, because the way things are going, it's all unravelling. Jason alluded to this is going in one direction at the moment. It's going in that direction pretty quickly. Does Ed Woodward intervene here and say, look, Jose, things aren't well. What do we need to do? How can we put things right? Or do you think those conversations take place regularly or have already taken place?
Well, I don't see the difficulty with. I absolutely take Jason's point about there is a tipping point, you know. But I don't know where United go. This is the thing. They can't keep. You know, they appointed the future. You know, the chosen one, David Moyes. He didn't last a season. You know, I mean, they didn't even give him a full 12 months. Another summer transfer window. So then they get now we're going to get the sort of archetypal foreign coach, Louis van Gaal, and then the football wasn't that scintillating and they weren't doing particularly well anyway, and so now he's gone. So then they get Jose
Won the FA Cup and still sacked him.
Yeah, absolutely, won the FA Cup and still sacked him. Then they get Jose, who looks like the match made in heaven, right? Big guy, big club, knows how to win. But what they can't have anticipated is 15 points clear 2 miles down the road. I mean, that is a big kick up the whatsits for anybody. And now, if they were to sack Jose, if they were to force this situation and then go, well, what do you want to do? And he's, well, and go. Who do you get? Who do you get that is going to get you nearer than 15 points to Manchester City the way they're playing at the moment? And that's the problem. That's number one. And they've never been very good at standing up to their managers, all the way back to, and you know, there was Alex Ferguson, and obviously, you know, you don't necessarily want to have a fight with Alex Ferguson. But the day that Alex Ferguson announced that he was going to sue the two biggest shareholders in the club, somebody should have said, "No, you're not, Alex. No, you're not, mate. We'll sort this out." You know, but they didn't. They've never been very. You know, they have these big manager figures, and I'm not sure they actually stand up to them.
OK. Where do you think it goes from here? What would your solution, your instant solution to the Manchester United crisis be, Jace?
If I was Ed Woodward, I would have to sit down with Jose Mourinho and just ask him, really, what does he want to happen now? What does he want to do with this club and with this team? Where does he see himself?
Would Pep win the title? As Jamie Carragher said, Pep Guardiola would win the title with the Manchester United squad if he inherited it right now. He would win
the title. Yeah, I think he would. But I also think the good point that Jamie made in the Telegraph column yesterday also was, you know, start of the season, you go to Manchester United supporters and say, do you want Otamendi or Bailly? Do you want Rashford or Sterling? Do you want De Bruyne or Pogba? Very few of them would have swapped them for the City players. Absolutely. So you look at that and you're going through, would you have Edison over De Gea? No, you wouldn't, actually. So straight away, there is plenty to work with in that Manchester United team, and I think absolutely they would have. And I think Manchester United made a mess of the whole Pep Guardiola situation as well. I think they didn't try and get him enough. He was always going to go to Manchester City, I think, because of the structure there and because of the people there. But I think they should have tried an awful lot harder to get him, and I don't think they did. And I think that's come out a little bit in the recent book about Klopp, this sort of adult Disneyland or whatever it was nonsense that came out. And there is a little bit of apparent chaos to me in the way that Manchester United have gone about their business, and I think that, to be fair to, and I think Ollie Holtz alluded to that in his column, I think that, to be fair to Mourinho, he's got an argument there at the club, but Manchester United needs a manager. They've always had managers, they want managers who are like big characters, because it's an unusual club in many ways, because there's so many different dimensions to it, but at the same time it's actually quite a sort of old-fashioned club in the way it's organised, and I think that sometimes it's almost like the last club that needs that kind of manager who does everything. And I think that's why they've obviously gone for Mourinho. So Martin's right. If Mourinho did go, what would they do? Yeah. I'm not sure. I personally think they'd almost have to start again with a younger manager and just say, like, we're just to go again here. But that's going to be very, very difficult for them to do as well. Yeah, certainly will be. Tough times, tough start to the day for Jose Mourinho. Next up, we're going to talk Liverpool. Virgil Van Dijk moved for £75 million. Is he worth it? We'll tell you next. OK, let's talk Virgil van Dijk, £75 million. He's just signed for Liverpool from Southampton. Darren, is he all that? Is he worth it?
I think he is worth it, particularly when you consider how much he would improve the Liverpool team. when you consider the problems that they have and have had for some time, and also the statement it makes for Liverpool as a club, because there's this kind of this simmering undertone that maybe FSG haven't been as prepared to support Klopp as some people might think. To land a player of Van Dijk's calibre, everyone talks about the money, but, you know, if he enables them to achieve what they want to achieve, we won't talk about it. We no longer talk about the £50 million it cost Kyle Walker, Man City to buy Kyle Walker. Absolutely. We don't talk about the money it cost City to buy John Stones. When you are talking about players of that calibre, I think that the money's absolutely worth it.
Darren, just on the point about the money is, OK, the transfer fees are routinely banded around, but we talk about them as if me or you are going out to buy Starbucks. And with all due respect, it is a great deal of cash.
It is a lot of money, but then, you know, we're talking about the huge TV deals that the clubs sign, where we've been saying for years and years that this whole thing, the bubble is going to burst, and if anything, you know, football is getting bigger and bigger, and the money that the clubs have, this money, and when you look at why do we have that frenzy, that panic at the bottom of the Premier League, it's because all of the clubs, all of the owners know all about the riches that are available to them at the top level of English football, and that's why they invest so heavily. And now we're seeing even mid-ranking clubs spending your 30s and your 40 million pounds. We had this debate during the summer where average players, if you like, without naming any names, we're going for huge amounts of money.
I prefer it when you do.
I know you do.
Don't you?
No, always names.
Always name names, yeah. I don't hide behind it. Oh, yeah, we know a few.
Oh, no. Let's stay on point with Van Dijk. Because I think with Van Dijk, you know, it is about the statement that Liverpool as a club make. And, you know, we see, for example, with Alderweireld, where he goes into the Spurs team and he makes the defence better. Before his arrival, they were fairly shambolic. Since his arrival, they've had the best defence in the Premier League, jointly with Manchester United, and then by themselves. And so you see with him the value of a good leader, a good organiser, somebody who can inspire the players around him, and I think Van Dijk will do that.
If I was paying £75 million, though, Jason, I'd think, OK, I'd probably want Beckenbauer, Moore, Maldini, Costa Curta and Nesta rolled into one.
Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah. No,
forget the statement signing, I want the finished article. Is he the finished article?
He has to be. He absolutely has to be, but it's been a while. It's been a while since he's played
what did I miss?
No, I'm just saying.
He's not spilling coffee.
He was a good teacher's pet, isn't he? I mean, it was the only one. There was a big coffee order at half-time there.
Oh,
the only one who got one is
we'll get this sorted. Don't worry, we'll get this sorted.
No, absolutely. I mean, he didn't play second half of last season. He hasn't played very well this season so far. So yes, they do need him to come in and be that finished article. I think he is a very, very good player. I mean, I think almost there are now a tier of players where you're going to be paying ridiculous amounts of money. I think the problem I have with football is when the average players, which Darren's talked about, cost crazy amounts of money. But I think there are going to be, you know, a handful of players at most of the big clubs and most clubs where you are paying huge amounts of money for these players. The only concern I have with this is that he's not going to fix it all on his own. I mean, I think there is a structural issue around Liverpool, which is fantastic in the way they play and the way they attack, and they score so many goals, and they're incredible going forward. But it's not just one defender who's going to hold the whole defence together. So I think there are issues around there about how they organise themselves as well, which might go beyond that. But it is a solution for the problem they've got at the moment, and I think it's the right move for them to get him in. He's good on the ball. He's got everything that Klopp would want in a defender. But I just think we're going to have to sort of accept that these sort of big fees are going to be paid for a handful of absolute sort of, you know, top quality players. But as you say, he needs to prove that still.
Is he top draw?
Well, I think.
Were you surprised? I was at Newcastle.
I'm surprised that the fee was 75 million. Yeah, I'm surprised by that.
Because I was at Newcastle on Wednesday night for the Man City game, and then, you know, in the press room before the game, when that story, it was Jeremy Wilson, wasn't it? Yeah, it was a great story by Jeremy. First one with the Van Dijk story. It was a jaw drop. It was actually a jaw dropping moment among the lads. So, how much?
No.
We knew he was moving. Yeah. We knew he'd probably move to Liverpool, but hold on a minute. That's an extraordinary amount of money. Yeah,
my oldest lad told me, and you know, and he told me in those sort of terms. Can you believe this? The thing is, though, it's like the Manchester City fullback thing. If that is what completes your team, if that is what turns you from, at the moment, people are looking at Liverpool and they're thinking, right, OK, you know, they could get into the top four, they should get into the top four, etc., etc. If you're looking at that and you're thinking, right, if we had one great centre-half to sort Joe Gomez, to do this, to do that, we would move from being possibles to probables, or probables to certainties. And if you look at that and think, right, do you think Liverpool have got a title-winning team at the moment? And the answer of most people would go, no, not with that defence, they haven't. If you look at that now and think, well, they might have the makings of a title-winning team, because going forward they're magnificent. Going forward they're arguably the nearest thing to City, maybe, or them and Tottenham, or whatever. Then you look at that and think, well, then £75 million is worth it. If we could actually, if this could get us into the second place behind Manchester City at the moment, say the 15 points, and then next season we go again, we tweak a little bit here, we tweak a little bit there, and we go again. Well, then 75 million is worth that leap.
I think just in general terms, it is all about, if you look at the whole of 2017, Liverpool have been making statements. They kept Coutinho when everybody expected them to sell Barcelona. I remember being out in Singapore and their view was, at no stage do we want to do business with Barcelona. And everyone believed they'd cave in, and they were resolute, and they kept their man. If you look at what they're going into 2018, a 15-game unbeaten run, they're into the knockout stages of the Champions League, a competition they need to retain their place in. You look at Salah, a wonderful signing. Obviously, Mane's been a wonderful signing for them already, but they've gone from having 2 players, Mane and Coutinho, that they rely on, to 4 players, Firmino as well as Salah, that they can rely on in terms of that interchangeable attack that was exhilarating yet again yesterday. You look at the fact that they've continued the progression of Alexander-Arnold, of Joe Gomez, who you mentioned. I think 2017 has been all about statements for Liverpool, and Van Dijk slots into that. And I think that at the moment they are still building. Naby Keita will come in the summer. They will get stronger next season, I think, is what United fans wish they could look at. Liverpool fans know they can look at with optimism, because I think as far as what Klopp is trying to do, 2017 has been all about statements, and this is the biggest one.
17 points separate Man City and Liverpool at the moment. Is this the kind of player, though, that can help to bridge that gap?
It's interesting, because the point Martin made there about, sort of that player that makes the difference. My reaction when the deal went through was, that's about £15 million more than I expected it to go for. But 60 or 75, but it's something that's almost like, how do those numbers really matter? But then my reaction after that was, yes, he is the one that they need. He is the one that could do that for them. And I suddenly thought, I was actually thinking maybe they might even finish second, with him going in there now. Maybe he might just be the one who helps them finish second. Now, if he does that, then it's worth it, because then, as Darren says, you've got Naby Keita coming next year. You've possibly got Thomas Lemar coming next year. They are moving in that direction now, and also I think with that level of fee, they're now talking. Now you're talking about Liverpool in terms of the money that Manchester City spend, the money that Manchester United spend. It's more Chelsea. They're moving ahead of like Arsenal and Tottenham in terms of the sort of fees they're paying now. So I think it moves them just to a different sort of level suddenly in terms of their ambition, in terms of the way people might perceive them. And I think it definitely you start to look at the team slightly differently now.
What does it say about Southampton, Martin, that they've been able to extract a world record fee for a defender, that someone that they identified at Celtic, that they signed, nurtured, nourished, and has become the accomplished player that we know that Virgil van Dijk is? Sam Wallace's column this morning in the Sunday Telegraph says that Les Reed at Southampton said this is the price. You either pay it or you don't, or he stays. It's £75 million or we walk away. Just how good a deal is it for them?
Well, it's a great deal unless they end up going down. Simple as that. I mean, Southampton sell.
Well, what a week for them. They're selling for £75 million. Draw at Manchester United.
Draw at Manchester United are very, very good, but shipped 5 at Tottenham.
They did.
So if you look at the league table and you're Southampton, selling your best player, OK, that's what they do. They sell their best player. Sooner or later, it will catch up with you. Sooner or later, it does you in. At the moment, they're nowhere near where they were last season. They have gone backwards on last season, and you can blame the manager or whatever, but the manager came in with this. We want to sell our best players and play football where we're balancing the ball on our nose like seals. So You can't do that. Something has to give in the end. You have to be pragmatic. If you are a selling club and all you ever do is sell your best player, then you've got to be pragmatic about the football you can play. Puel last year did a fantastic job at Southampton.
Yeah.
He did a tremendous job for a selling club, and a big selling club as well. And you can keep arguing, we will produce, we will talent scout, we will do this, we will do that. There's going to be one season where something goes wrong, where you've sold one too many, same as Wimbledon did. In the end, Wimbledon got relegated because they sold one too many in the end. But, you know, at the moment, 75 million looks like a fantastic piece of business. Everything that looks like a fantastic piece of business, I always find a year later comes back and bites you right in the backside. Gareth Bale looked like a fantastic piece of business at one stage.
I think it depends what they do in this window. I think that's partly why they've done the deal so quickly, got the price they wanted. They need to go next week, window opens, bang, 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 we're signing these players, and we're actually recognising the problem that Martin's highlighted there. That's why the Daniel Sturridge thing is quite interesting, because Sturridge doesn't fit the mould of the sort of player that Southampton would normally go for, but I think they realise they're in a world of trouble here, and they've got to get it sorted out. I think they probably thought, we've got Wesley Hoot, he's basically Van Dijk's replacement, but the problems we've got in this team are further forward, so we've got to get some forward players in. And I think it depends. If they buy 2 or 3 players in the next 2 weeks, they can sort this. If they don't, and they try and get away with it, they're in trouble.
Darren, you've been writing about Sturridge this week. What's his position? What's his situation?
Well, he's unhappy that he looks as though he may not get a chance to play regular first-team football because Liverpool want around about £25 million for him. He is a wonderful footballer. I do just want to nail, and it's great to be able to be here to do so, that this perception of he has an attitude. Because I keep hearing this all the time, and yet I've yet to see anything tangible that tells me that he has, you know, and it's always in pejorative terms, he has an attitude problem. You know, what is this attitude problem? He's a wonderful finisher who knows his own mind, and football doesn't know how to deal with people like that, so they call them, they describe them as having an attitude problem.
Or difficult.
Yeah, or difficult. I don't see what is difficult about somebody who knows his own mind and, you know, wants to be able to speak his own mind. I think as far as Sturridge is concerned, he improves most teams in the Premier League. He's been unfortunate with injury, as we all know.
But isn't there a perception, though, that he's not always played when he had to play or needed to play? I mean, there was that line in the Gerrard book, wasn't there, where he had to put his arm around him and say, Daniel, can you sort of play today, sort of thing?
Sure, but I think that's different from him having an attitude problem. I think that I remember Roy Keane's book where he writes about the fact that he would play through the pain barrier, but then he looked at other players, Jeroen van Nistelrooy, and says, I wish I would have looked after myself like some of those players when I had a little niggle. And so I think you can look at things in lots of different ways, but I think as far as Sturridge is concerned, he needs to play and he would like to play.
And he needs to get away, Darren. Do we accept that?
He does indeed. He does need to get away, and obviously Southampton would be, as you say, a good fit for him. They're interested, Stoke are interested as well, but I think Mark Hughes has got other problems. But if he is able to get regular first-team football at Southampton, then I think he would go.
OK. Just want to finish off this part about Philippe Coutinho.
Yeah.
Do we expect him to leave Liverpool for Barcelona in this transfer window, or are we looking longer term, or not at all now?
I think it's possible this window. I do. I mean, obviously, I think that Liverpool won't want to let him go. But I think what's interesting with Coutinho is I think the story slightly shifted in that last summer it was like there's absolutely no way we can let him go. But Liverpool are slightly different now, and they're not so dependent on him. You know, look at the way Salah's been playing. Obviously, Mane's come back. Firmino's playing fantastically well. Adam Lallana's going to come back into the team. There's interest in Thomas Lemar. They've got Naby Keita coming in. So suddenly, people are thinking, well, actually, are we as dependent on Philippe Coutinho as we probably felt we were? And I think the fans almost feel that a little bit as well. I still think it would be probably a mistake to let him go this window because, you know, why now? But I think the problem is when will Barcelona come calling again? And obviously I think there was a fear from his camp last summer that it's now or never, you've got to let him go. But I think they might come back again, and they might come back again this summer. Obviously the whole ongoing thing with Antoine Griezmann as well with Barcelona complicates things, but I think they are still interested in him.
I mean, Barcelona's form in La Liga is so good that actually they can wait now.
Exactly, and he can't play in the Champions League for them. So I think they can wait. I think it probably will still happen. Not quite sure when, but maybe I'll be in next summer. And I think that Liverpool and their fans will probably accept it a bit more now than they did last summer, which vindicates the decision to hang on to him until now.
Absolutely.
Sure. OK. Next up here on the Sunday Supplement, Daniel Taylor's been writing about this young man. It's Ryan Brewster at Liverpool. We're going to salute his bravery and talk about the problems he's faced on the field. That's coming next here on the Sunday Supplement. Welcome back. With us this morning, Martin Samuel, Darren Lewis and Jason Burt. Let's just remind you quickly what's in the papers this morning. Mourinho is getting battered on the front pages of the sports sections. Heats on Jose, that's the Mail on Sunday. And at the back, I'm afraid, Glenn Hoddle's column in the Mail on Sunday this morning. He says, Pep's so good, I almost feel sorry for Jose Mourinho. Mourinho drew yesterday, 0-0 at Old Trafford. Lukaku. Thanks for it.
Yeah, I like to try and...
No, I know you do. You've got a bit of OCD.
Yeah, maybe. I like a tidy pile of paper.
Yeah, OK. Well, you didn't do that.
Yeah. I love you almost in that line.
Sunday
Times.
I
almost feel sorry for Jose.
OK, I'll give it another go. Take two. Knockout blow. Lukaku taken off yesterday with concussion. He'll miss Manchester United's next game, which is against Everton. A draw yesterday for United. Happy Blue Year. We're coming on to this one. I wasn't happy. I was at Stoke, at Stamford Bridge yesterday for Mark Hughes and the 5-0 defeat for Stoke. And a happy Blue Year. Good win for Chelsea. Good goal for Danny Drinkwater. Sanchez, he's not my problem. That's Wenger. He doesn't know what he's going to do at the end of the season. Sanchez out of contract, of course. Thierry Henry talked about him during Arsenal's victory at Crystal Palace and the celebrations or lack of. We'll come on to that in part 4 of today's programme. That's the next part. We want to talk about this young man, not Daniel Taylor, but Ryan Brewster, who's a Liverpool player, who spoke very bravely and courageously to Danny a few days ago. Danny's talked about him in his column, written about him in his column this morning, Martin. And the abuse that he has been subjected to, that he has highlighted, that Daniel and Ryan Brewster have highlighted in the pages of The Observer and The Guardian over the last few days. First of all, how courageous is it and how brave of a 17-year-old boy to go to a national newspaper to talk about the problems that he has faced on the field? And secondly, are you surprised that he's been subjected to this type of abuse? And beyond that, what does the game need to do to protect its young players?
Well, in terms of courage or bravery, I think it's wonderful that he has spoken out about it, because this has been going on for a long time. There's been a lot of white guys in press boxes, writing about UEFA, and it doesn't carry that same weight as actually somebody who has experienced it, a young player as well. He's not an old guy. The fact that he's a teenager, coming out and saying, look, he's 17 years old, he's never played a first-team game for Liverpool, and this is happening. And the interesting thing is, in a lot of these games, it's happening under the radar. You wouldn't get away with it in front of 50,000 people with 200 television cameras on you and everything, but you can get away with it. Spartak Moscow, they played out in the sticks. When they played that match against Spartak Moscow, there's a man and his dog there, and so it's that idea of people know exactly what they can get away with and when they can get away with it and everything, and he's absolutely nailed that, and it's fantastic that he's done that, because it carries so much more weight than anything that just about anyone around this table. I'm not necessarily including Darren in this, but certainly someone in my position, Jason, in your position, it carries so much more weight than one of us writing, Kid, have you seen this latest fine from UEFA? This is just a joke. And everyone goes, yeah, it is, isn't it? And it doesn't go anywhere. This might actually go somewhere. Now, UEFA haven't made a comment on it, which I think shows you everything you need to know about them. But knowing Danny isn't going to let this go. Other people aren't going to let this go. And in the end, they're going to have to do something. They're going to have to take serious action, because English clubs in Europe have been banging on about this for years now. Manchester City, the complaint with Yaya Toure, went absolutely nowhere. I can remember Adrian Bevington with England saying to me a number of years ago, we go to these places, it's not one, in England, we can now identify one guy in a stand. We've got it down to that level. He said, you'll go somewhere else, and there's 4 stands. And it's coming from all 4 stands, and we're going at the UEFA official, can you hear this? And being met with dumb looks, basically. Well, I don't hear anything. So this, because of the person it comes from, because it comes from a 17-year-old kid who has felt moved to speak out, which I think is wonderful, this might actually change something, which would be fantastic.
Darren, did it surprise you?
Nope.
The 17-year-old boy playing for Liverpool, OK, it could have been any club that's playing in in Liverpool's colours. But did it surprise you?
No. I work for the Daily Mirror now for 17 years. I've never been. I am now not surprised by any instance of racism I see within football, because football is all talk. Has been for a long time. It's all talk, and there's a couple of striking bits of the interview. One of which is where Ryan Brewster, in Danny's original interview, where he's standing in front of an anti-racism banner. I think he turns to Ben Woodburn, if I'm not mistaken. He said, I don't know why we're doing this. We stand in front of all of these banners, anti-racism banners, and I still get abused. And he does it time after time. And the most depressing aspect of that interview is the fact that, and here's where I slightly disagree with Danny's optimism. As we all know, his work is wonderful. But I think we now have another generation of young black men, footballers, put that by the by, young black men who have no faith in football's ability to deal with racism. And he talks about his disillusionment, Ryan, in his piece. He's extremely articulate. You could tell he's well brought up. I think that we have a situation where you listen to him speak, and it could be any one of the black players that have suffered racism over the last 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years. It's the stages that get on with it, show them how good you are. That could be anybody from the 70s that has been spoken to by their manager. Ignore them, just get on with the game. In 2017, we shouldn't be telling young black men simply to get on with the game. And I think that, we can be optimistic about Ryan, but then I thought we'd be optimistic and that there would be a change after Suleiman Tari walked off the pitch earlier this year. And he offered his shirt to a young child who was among the many people abusing him. We haven't had change after that. I thought maybe we would have change after Eni Aluko, but we haven't had anything that gives us any more confidence in the game. And I think the idea that because he speaks well, and let's not kid ourselves, he's a hero for doing that, as closely followed by Alex Inglethorpe for taking up the cudgels from Troy Townsend from Kick It Out, who's worked hugely, tirelessly for him. But we can't kid ourselves that this is going to change anything, because there isn't a will within FIFA. Listen, the FA are complaining to FIFA about this. The FIFA could well turn around and say, well, let's have your observations on the Eni Aluko case. What would the FA say then? I think that we are in a difficult moment that doesn't show any sign whatsoever of changing. And I don't think it will do, simply because a young, courageous, very talented young player has spoken up. We need more than that. And I think that if we get more than that, if it's more than just The Guardian, as you rightly say, the English media, yes, there is a fantastic will within the English media to talk about these issues. But, we've had broadcasters here, and since I've been working at the Daily Mirror, newspapers say, we won't touch that. Why? Because they may have the best will in the world, but they maybe feel unqualified to do so because, they're white middle-class men who maybe don't understand, as you were saying.
That's part of the issue.
And I think that, for that reason, it shouldn't just be Danny. It should be the English media, the English game. We do need to look at racism. We do need to ensure we don't have as many. Millwall Wolves this week, and Millwall fans, racist abuse against the Wolves players. We have so much to look at within this country as well before we start to look outward.
Jace, Darren said that black people feel that they don't have any faith in the
people
system.
don't have any faith in the system.
Yeah.
No.
Why would Darren feel so? Why would Darren say that? Why would people feel so exposed?
I mean,
or why would they be allowed to feel?
I've got to agree
so
with every word that
exposed?
Darren said, and it's quite depressing, really, that he's I'd love to think that Martin's right, and that obviously this can be a moment, but at the same time, I kind of feel more Darren's right, really, that it's still so long. I just don't know what the FA complaint go to FIFA and UEFA. I just don't know where it goes from there. That's the problem. It will just. I can't see something happening about it. I mean, if he's spoken out, and also, it's not just an Eastern European thing either. He talks about incidents happening against Spain.
Yeah.
For goodness' sake, what And generationally as well, it worries me. As Darren said, there's a 17-year-old kid who's got no faith. He's got no faith that this is being dealt with at all. So it's another generation of kids growing up feeling the same way about it. I just don't know. I find it all quite, you know, it's all quite upsetting and depressing, really, that I don't know where it goes. I just don't know. I mean, obviously, it's an education thing, it's a society thing, it's a social thing. But I don't know why it's even. I mean, it sounds very naive to say this. I don't even know why it's an issue in 2017 going into 2018. I can't compute this very well, to be honest with you. Maybe I don't know.
Well, Danny makes two good points there. Kicking Out recorded their highest number of hate crime, if you like.
Is that because people are complaining more, or?
Well, no, because we live in a society in the wider context, but that's been driven by hate.
Yeah.
But what has always been the case is that football at the highest level has not been representative of the people who play the game. And so that within the higher echelons, there hasn't been the drive to pursue this kind of case.
No.
So, as Danny rightly says, you complain about it, but there's someone, a white middle-class man, who basically has a look, closes a book and moves on and has a glass of wine with his contemporaries. I think what we need is change at the top. If we get change at the top, then maybe at a lower level things will change. But I can see Ryan Brewster's friends saying, "Why? If one of them gets abused, they'll say, why should I complain? They didn't deal with your situation. What makes me think they're going to deal with mine?"
I just think that with this, I don't know. I just get the feeling that they won't be able to just tiptoe away from this one. The biggest outrage, the absolute biggest outrage, is that they sent the World Cup to Russia. With all of the problems that we know that the Russian clubs have had with racism and this and that, and it showed there straight away. You know, Yaya Toure spoke out about it, and Yaya Toure was talking about African players, African teams just walking off the pitch if anything happens. You'd like to see that. You would like to see that as a response. I just think they've got to deal with this one, because this is not some guy in a suit and tie coming to them and going through an official channel and doing that. This is one of the people that they are there supposedly to protect in all their banners, as you say, the nonsense banners that Rio Ferdinand, that was Rio Ferdinand's point about the T-shirts and stuff like that. They've got to deal with this, because this is not the normal sort of complaint. This is not coming from a load of guys in suits. This is coming from a 17-year-old kid turning around and saying, well, why can't you protect me? Why can't you help me?
The other thing that struck me, Darren, reading the original interview, was the conversation that Ryan Brewster had with his parents. He said, look, I actually want to talk about this and the difficulties that he faced. It wasn't a question of convincing his parents, but of course, naturally, it's their 17-year-old son, and they were worried about the consequences. So when you put yourself in the position that he was in, and how difficult that conversation must have been wherever it took place, and how his parents feel about their son being racially abused. I mean, it's not just an isolated incident as well. He has listed and talked about several instances, but just how difficult is it for his parents as well to deal with?
I think right now, I think they'd feel immensely proud of him as a young man as well as a player, because he speaks articulately, passionately, and he's handled the situation very well. He does speak about one moment where he let his emotions get the better of him, where he wanted to retaliate physically. But again, I talked about the various stages. At first, you do listen to the people around you who say, no, let your football do the talking. Show them, you go on the pitch. But eventually, you're a human being, you react. But what happens is, when you react, you're the problem. You're the angry black man. You buy into all of those stereotypes that other people have of you. So it must be particularly hard for him as a young man to be able to deal with situations like that. I've got to also mention, you know, Liverpool as a club, they've handled this whole situation magnificently. And what's quite interesting is they will admit themselves they made mistakes with the Luis Suarez situation. Now they find themselves on the other side. And I think, you know, we talk about education. We're all learning in situations like this. Clubs are learning in situations like this. It's not about blindly staying loyal to your players in situations. If you're going to deal with racism, you have to deal with it whether it affects you or not, you know, whether your player is culpable or not. And I think moving forward, that will help them to be able to.
It's a good point on Liverpool actually, because I think some clubs would have just said, "Well, no, don't do that.
Oh, don't do that. Absolutely.
Don't get involved in that. Don't go down that road at all." But it's absolutely right. I mean, Liverpool have handled this very, very well. Obviously, Alex Inglethorpe's been heavily involved in all of this. They're looking at the kind of overall pastoral care of the player as well and the person. And I think that actually the whole issue has been very well handled, and fair play for Danny. He's obviously did a very good interview and he's followed up with the column. And as Martin says, he's one journalist, and I think we all have a duty as well to sort of see this through a bit more. And one of the points he makes in his column today was when he tried to contact UEFA from FIFA, they're all on holiday.
Everyone's on holiday, everyone's on a break. You know, good luck. The fella said to him, good luck trying to get a response, basically.
Which is incredible, really. It's an indictment.
Like FIFA,
Yeah, certainly is. OK, good stuff on a very, very difficult subject. It's Ryan Brewster talking about racist abuse as a 17-year-old footballer playing in the colours of Liverpool. OK, next up, we will talk Emmanuel Aboué. Darren's been writing about him this week. We'll also talk about Stoke City. Lost 5-0 at Chelsea with a weakened side at Stamford Bridge. So we'll talk more about that. It's coming next. Welcome back. OK, let's move on. Let's talk Emmanuel Aboué, if we may. Darren, you've been writing about him because you interviewed him and the extraordinary circumstances he finds himself in, of course, ex-Arsenal player. Just tell us a little bit about the problems that he's going through as well in his life at the moment.
Yeah, he's 34 now. 6 years ago, he was playing for Arsenal, went to Galatasaray, as we all know, and now he's without a club. He is suffering from mental health issues, which he's been very open about with the Daily Mirror, and he's lost touch with everyone at the club that he played for so well, and he's very much down his luck. He's broke. And I sat with him for quite some time, and it's quite a harrowing interview, actually, when you consider someone of his ability, of his standing, of his status, how life has just got away from him so very quickly. And there is a wider context, obviously, because I'm sure he is far from an isolated incident. We've all read about the whole issue of emotional welfare within the game. But also, for some younger players and even some older players, the naivety within their personal lives that enables them maybe to be a bit blasé about the way they handle money, the way they handle their representation, the way that they allow people maybe to take control of various aspects of their personal and professional lives. And all of these things for him, that I think his motivation for doing the piece was maybe other young, particularly African players, but all players can maybe have a look at the way that they deal with certain situations and maybe learn from his mistakes that he has made.
What's next for Aboué? What does he go? Because Galatasaray offered him some help immediately, didn't they?
Well, there was an offer. Nothing has been finalised yet. I must say, I mean, Arsenal wouldn't want to make a big deal about this, but Arsenal are behind the scenes making contact with him. And just, if I may, just mention the many Arsenal fans who have been tremendous. I wake up, my inbox is full up with Arsenal fans sort of wanting to offer support, wanting to offer help, and it does kind of warm me in that regard. So I do just want to mention them, but Arsenal as a club as well, they won't want to be flagged up too much, but they are doing a fair bit behind the scenes to get in touch. Yeah, good for them, and hope it all works out for Emmanuel Aboué in the end. Good stuff from Dazzler this week in the Daily Mirror. Let's move on to events yesterday at Stamford Bridge, Jason. Chelsea 5, Stoke City 0, but the story here really is Stoke City. The number of changes that Mark Hughes made, fielded a weakened team. He made no apology for that. Didn't try to hide it. He's got a big game against Newcastle tomorrow at the Bet365 Stadium. The house is on that game, isn't it? He said, that's the one I want to win. That's what it's all about. And this one, it's Chelsea way. We never win at Chelsea. We're not likely to win at Chelsea, so let's move on.
Quite depressing, isn't it?
It is depressing, yeah. The thing that struck me straight away was this calls the integrity of the league into question, but have you got the same? Do you have the same feelings towards it?
Listen, I mean, Mark Hughes has got to look after Stoke City and himself. Obviously, he's in an awful lot of difficulty in terms of where they are at the moment. But yeah, I do worry about things like that. I was at Newcastle on Wednesday as well. I think you were there. We watched that game. Tactically, you could argue he tried to, have a game plan to stop Manchester City, but the fact is he also fielded a weakened team. And I think there is a danger now that the top 6 in particular are so strong that I think some teams are going to almost look at them and think, I'm just going to fulfil this fixture. I'm not even going to give it a go anymore. And what worries me about that is...
Well, because you take it back to Burnley at the start of the season. Burnley beat them at Stamford Bridge. Okay, Chelsea, Fabregas got sent off, I think. But it was an honest win from Burnley. There's no one... You couldn't say that was lucky. It was an honest victory.
No, absolutely. And I think we have this idea that the Premier League is an incredibly competitive league in which everyone can beat everyone else. Now, obviously, we also know the top 6 don't want that to happen anymore. That's why they're spending so much money, and they've got these stellar managers. They want that just to go away. The Burnleys and people like that, Leicester City, just go away. But I think Mark Hughes would argue that he's got 2 games in 48 hours, so therefore he's got to sort of manage those 2 games. And actually, in a very sort of cynical, pragmatic way, he's going to get more chance of getting points out of Newcastle than he is out of Chelsea. But my argument against that is, I think Martin mentioned momentum earlier with Manchester United. And I think momentum is a big thing. If they had gone there yesterday with Hazard on the bench and got a draw or got something out of that game, surely that would have taken them into the Newcastle game in better spirits. Instead, they got thumped. And it just puts you under a lot of pressure. They've got to get a result against Newcastle now. Now, Newcastle put a weakened team out against Manchester City. Then they drew against Brighton yesterday. So he's got a point. So that's not worked out very well for Rafa Benitez. And I think Mark Hughes could be in a similar situation. Again, the argument against that is these teams, these clubs don't carry the squads that Chelsea do and Manchester City do. I understand that. But I think sometimes you just got to get on with it and play your team and try and get a result in the match. And I think that Chelsea are not invincible; they are beatable. They're not incredible. And I just think that they've given Chelsea a massive boost and themselves a massive sort of they've damaged themselves really. I think.
Martin,
I mean, it's been going on for a long time. I mean, Mark Hughes is not the first guy to do it. I mean. There was the year that Sheffield United went down, Neil Warnock went nuts about Liverpool putting out a weakened team against Fulham, completely ignoring the fact that he put out a weakened Sheffield United team against Manchester United for the same reason, for the reason of we've got a game that I think is winnable and I don't think Manchester United away is winnable. So I think that's 10 years ago now, isn't it, that season? So, it's been going on. Mick McCarthy got fined for it at Wolves. Jason, in what Jason was saying there, he said against a Chelsea team without Hazard. So Chelsea left out their best player, basically. Chelsea left out their best player. It's a difficult time of the season. We can't have it always. We want everyone to play 5 games in 4 days or whatever it is over Christmas, but then we don't want them to adjust their team accordingly.
So why didn't Mark Hughes... That's the point Mark Hughes could have made yesterday is, I've got, according to the rules, a 25-man squad which was registered at the start of the season, and I've used that 25-man squad because we had a game against Chelsea yesterday, we've got a game against Newcastle into the FA Cup. Why didn't Mark Hughes say...
Can I jump in here?
OK.
Because I think you're right. I think you're right, and that's the thing that struck me the most about yesterday's interview. I've been to many Pochettino press conferences where he says, I don't have a team, I have a squad. And every player within that squad is valuable. If Mark Hughes had said that, no one would have batted an eyelid. What I don't understand is why he framed it so negatively. Yeah, it was fascinating to listen to because he has every right to pick whoever he wants within that squad, and those players should be ready to play within a 25-man squad. Why would he frame it so negatively that I'm resting my best players for Monday? I think he put himself in a difficult situation that he didn't need to put himself into.
And surely you're going to games, you never know. The point that Jason made, Burnley, West Ham beaten Chelsea this season, Crystal Palace who were bottom of the table hadn't won a game when they beat Chelsea. So you never know.
I mean, looking at this season, I think we're getting more games like this. I think, especially as the season progresses, I think these top teams now are so strong. And I think, unfortunately, it's almost become a mental thing where some teams are looking at them thinking we can't beat this lot. We're not going to take that. And I think the league is changing a little bit. Unfortunately for us, I think this top 6 is going to get away. They've gone. I think now. I think the Leicester thing. I think that everyone just looked at the top 6 looked at that and thought we're not going to let that ever happen again. We're going to spend a lot of money, and we're going to get the best managers in, and the rest of the league can look after itself, and we're away. And I think that's unfortunate. And obviously then the problem this season is you've got one team, and the rest of the other 5 are thinking they're freaks. We'll just leave them be. You know, they'll just run away with it, and we'll just sort ourselves out. The other 5. And I think that's unfortunately the way it's gone.
At the bottom of the sorry, Des, I want a quick word on Swans actually, because they changed their manager. And be remiss of us not to talk about that managerial change, because nobody expected Carlos Carvalho to get that job this week, sacked by Sheffield Wednesday just before Christmas. Now he's the Swansea manager, gets a brilliant result yesterday in his first game in charge, winning at Vicarage Road. But were you shocked, were you surprised by his appointment?
I was surprised by the appointment, yeah.
Daft question, really.
But you know, I think looking at the touchline yesterday, straight away there was more fire on that touchline. There was more passion, there was more urgency. You recognised the need to play with an attacking line-up because goals had been their problem. And you look at the way he set about the game, obviously trying to address the fact that they hadn't scored enough goals so far this season. And I think you look at the players as well, you already see motivation in their eyes. And I think as far as the team is concerned, at the bottom, I think around about 8 teams now who you would say are involved in it, and Swansea have given themselves a chance. Already this season, we've had a situation where we've seen Palace bottom of the league and everyone wrote them off and therefore put themselves back into it. West Ham bottom of the league, everyone wrote them off, they are back into it. And now Swansea as well. I think it's a very, very wide open fight for Swansea.
Big win. Certainly is. Big win for Swansea yesterday at Vicarage Road. OK, next up, we're going to get all misty-eyed. We're all very wistful. We're going to talk about the year we just had, 2017, and a spring in our step. Lots to look forward to in 2018. More on that next. Right, you prime your guests at the start of the week and say, OK, it's the last show of 2017. The last part is going to be what happened in 2017, your best memories. You remind them in the break at the end of part 4. And the looks and the look of bewilderment and shock on their faces, scratching their heads, everyone's going great.
When was the Matthews Cup final? When was that? Was that 2000?
Exactly, you're no good to us at this point. You're no good to us. But Daz, I think you might have a memory.
No, you can't have that.
Tell you what I'll take. I will take Kylian Mbappe doing superbly well in 2017. Obviously, the first half of 2017 for Monaco. His performance at Manchester City, a joy, but you could pick so many. But that was a particular highlight, and I think that's the season really that made him a star.
Jace, you're looking
he's very generously just sort of handed me the one that he was going to do, which was obviously Barcelona's...
Well, OK.
Barcelona's comeback against Paris Saint-Germain, because I was actually there at the time, and that was... I've never been at a game like that. I mean, it was incredible, really, the atmosphere. The fact also that it was 88 minutes and they still needed 3 goals. And then when they did score in the 80th minute, there was like 6 minutes of injury time. You just thought straight away they're going to do this. And I've never seen a team collapse as dramatically as PSG. And the traumatic reaction from all around that club afterwards was incredible. And that was a game I'll never forget. And it's interesting because when I went to the game.
Can you remember who got the winner?
Who got the winner? Sergio Roberto, wasn't it? Yeah.
It was.
When I went to the game,
bag.
I know, I was struggling there.
You weren't struggling.
There's a free kick from Neymar and a penalty by Neymar, I think, as well, wasn't there? Right at the end. But I remember going to the game and the sports desk said to me, just don't bother going. I said, you never know. You never know. It's worth going. So that'll be mine. The only other one I wanted to quickly mention was Guardiola's sort of conversation with Redmond, which I just thought was the most extraordinary thing I've ever seen a manager do, and kind of summed up to me what he's like. Because I genuinely believe I don't think there was any malice involved in that. I think he's just so in his own world, but he just kind of just did it. And he was fortunate that he had a placid manager in Pellegrino who let him get away with it. Because imagine if it'd been somebody else.
Yeah.
But that was
Jose, for example,
or even Klopp or Wenger or anyone. They would never let that happen. But generously, I just think it was him just so in his own world, and it gave us an insight of what he's like, that he felt able to do that.
Yeah. Martin?
Cristiano Ronaldo's hat-trick, I think it's against Atletico Madrid, which I think it was a semi-final, wasn't it, of the Champions League? I think it was 2017, it might be 2016.
Yeah, it was.
To be fair, as far as I'm concerned, the 1984 season never actually ended. It's just been one long procession since then. But and it was just a player just turning up with everyone looking at him, everyone going, oh, can this guy deliver? What's he going to deliver for him? And everyone thinks he's a fading force, and he turned up and he won the game. He reinvented himself as a centre forward, which he's always gone underneath the radar. I know he's not the player of the season this season. I know what's happened with Barcelona. I know that he's fading and Real Madrid is good this season. But that was maybe it is the last hurrah of a great player. But it was. He's turned into a centre forward, and it's like, I will take the responsibility for winning this game. And you don't get too many occasions. You won't see these guys play too often. And we're quite fortunate that we get to see these guys, because no one saw Pele when Pele was playing. He played for Santos. There was no British journalist going out to watch Santos play every week. You can go and see Cristiano Ronaldo. You can go and see Lionel Messi. And that stands out for me. And also, any time you see this Man City team as well, because I do think it's an exceptional team. And searching for the game in Australia, the Manchester derby, and going to this place that said it was open, it wasn't, at 2 o'clock in the morning, then having to get a taxi across the other side of town, and eventually finding this place in Surrey Hills that is the biggest dive I've ever watched a football match in. But then seeing that all of that stuff that you thought was going to happen, like Mourinho knows how to throw a blanket over a game, Mourinho knows how to win over 90 minutes, couldn't do it against them. Couldn't do it against them.
So masterclass.
That was fantastic.
In the Manchester derby.
That was fantastic. Yeah.
Okay. 2018 hopes. What are we thinking? Do we look towards the World Cup in England, or have we got domestic hopes with Manchester City in the way that they're playing, their swashbuckling style and their rampant, ruthless
I'm going to be sadly predictable, actually, and say, what are you talking about on the pitch, not rather than sort of in the wider context?
This is your forum.
I'd like to see more black managers in 2018. I'd love us to actually deal with the issue and sort that out, because I think that we have.
In your view, Darren, just to address that point, why aren't there?
Because there is a set way of doing things at the moment, and I think football is too resistant to that kind of change. But I think there does need to be, because there is a lot of managerial talent that football could avail itself of, and we've seen in this calendar year that at the moment football management is regurgitating a very samey gene pool, if you like, and I think that needs to change.
We fall in love with black footballers, but why don't we fall in love with black managers? That's what I don't understand, is that black players are quite often the best players at the club. It's not it's not at all unusual.
Yeah,
why don't we fall in love with
often,
former players?
It's far too deep for the end of the show, but I think.
Well, you didn't bring it up at the end of the show.
Next, because whatever you say, whatever any of us says about hopes for 2018 after this, it's just going to seem like so trivial, it's ridiculous. Yeah. So
and you haven't got a lot of time, unfortunately.
No, listen. All I will say is that, as I say, football has conditioned itself to go in one direction. And I think it needs to think beyond that. And I think there are lots of people doing work to try and convince people at the highest level, and also, in charge of football clubs up and down the country, that there is a different way to do things.
OK, well said. Jace, very quickly.
I'm not a Tottenham supporter, but I'd like to see Tottenham win a trophy. Because I think the work the Pochettino's done, I think, deserves recognition with the trophy. People keep using it as a stick to beat them over the head with, but I'd like to see them win something.
Yeah, OK. Well, good luck with that prediction. Yet to win one at Tottenham. Maybe we'll do in 2018. That's all we've got time for today. Thanks very much to the guys. Happy New Year to Martin, to Darren and to Jason for their company this morning. Thanks very much, guys.